This entire military is one cohesive, dedicated force. And the threats to our nations, they don't sleep. They're watching our every move. Iran, Russia, China, North Korea, ISIS, Al-Qaeda. They may be watching this right now. Our military should not be mistaken for a cable news gabfest show. We don't care what you look like. We don't care who you voted for, who you worship, what you worship, who you love. It doesn't matter if your dad left you millions when he died or if you knew who your father was. We have been honed into a machine of lethal moving parts that you would be wise to avoid if you know what's good for you. We will not be intimidated. We will not back down. We don't want war. But if you want war with the United States of America, there's one thing I can promise you, so help me God. Someone else will raise your sons and daughters.
Opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
Amber.
Catch the Into the Weeds podcast on Military Broadcast Radio every Sunday at 6 p.m. Central. Hosts Amber and Alora, the dynamic mother-daughter team, engage in interview-style discussions with intriguing guests on topics ranging from music and prison reform to archaeology and the paranormal. Are you ready to go into the weeds?
And the internet was working really fast and I was really excited. And then like 30 minutes before live, it started messing up. So that is the life here at Into the Weeds podcast. So we're just going to have to deal with it. And I'm okay with it. I'm muted. Why am I muted? Oh, seriously? Okay, hold on. I'm going to have to refresh this. Sorry, guys. Okay. Sorry about that, guys. Okay, I guess you can hear me. So thank you, Risa and Maverick. Okay. So anyways, yes, I actually sent in an email to my representative this week because my internet has been so bad. And yeah, so we're just going to go with it. Welcome, Tracer, as well. And yeah, so this week I had a really good week. I was very busy, actually. I was supposed to go to Chillicothe Women's Prison, and okay, there goes my screen again. I don't know if you heard any of that, but yeah, I was supposed to go to lobby day, and my cousin Audra, who's in prison, she has asked me for a whole year to go to lobby day. And so I put everything off to go to lobby day, and I went there from about 10:30 in the morning Wednesday till about 8:30 that night. And I met some really great people, and some people who have gone through some really hard, tough times. And I'm just so thankful that I was able to meet them. And yeah, so it was the people from the Missouri Prison Reform. And I'm actually just going to play a little clip or a little video. So let's see if it'll work. Okay, let's see. Hopefully it'll play. If my I don't know if anybody can see that or not. Oh my goodness, this is kind of ridiculous. Okay.
On the road we find stories, steps that intersect, dreams that intertwine. And in the gaze of the stranger, we find pieces of ourselves. Beautiful life, how beautiful you are.
Okay, so that was, let me quit sharing that. Yeah, so that was a couple of pictures that I put together for the Missouri Prison Reform Lobby Day that I went to. We're actually going to have quite a few people come on that I met. Oh, there was some really, really heartbreaking stories, and I'm just going to save those for whenever they come on. But suffice it to say, there needs to be oversight in the Missouri prison system. They're actually working on a bill, and I forgot to bring my paperwork down here right now. But yeah, just go to the Missouri Prison Reform website and look at the bills that they're trying to get the governor to pass. And hopefully we can get some oversight on the prison system here, and that everybody can be safe. Hey, Cherokee girl, it's good to see you. And yeah, so that's what I did this week. Alora wanted to go with me, but she was working. So yeah, so what we're doing tonight is we are going to be talking to a very interesting man. Oh, my husband brought, thank you. Thank you, honey. It's actually Bill HB 603, sponsored by Representative Bill Lucas, and HB 774, sponsored by Representative Bill Allen. And so, yeah, it's just basically to allow people to inspect each DOC facility. It would actually be 12 people on a board who would inspect everybody. And I didn't pause membership, Cherokee. I don't know what's going on. My internet's crazy today, so who knows what's going on with it. Yeah, I have no idea. I'll have to check that out. But yeah, there's going to be a 12-member board ranging from former women inmates, men, nurses who have worked at these facilities, mental health physician, all kinds of people. And it's very interesting. So go look it up. And I actually met a very inspiring woman. Her name is Representative Kimberly Collins out of St. Louis. I am truly inspired by her passion and her drive to help inmates and to change this world. And so go check her out and what she's doing in St. Louis and actually across all of Missouri. She's actually putting her boots on the ground, and she's actually making a difference here. And so if you are in the St. Louis area, look her up and see what she's doing. So without further ado, what we're going to do now is we are going to bring up our guest. His name is Bart Womack, and he is a retired command sergeant major, and he served in the U.S. Army, and he also was part of an incident that happened in Kuwait in 2003. And so we're going to bring him up, and we're just going to talk to him about why he went into the military and about the incident. So,
The interview of the week.
is brought to you by Jersey Mike's, a sub above.
Welcome, Bart, and thank you for joining Into the Weeds, where there's always chaos.
Well, thanks for having me.
I never know what's going to happen here, so it's an apt name. Okay. So, Bart, can you please just actually, do you want me to read I'll read your bio. That way everybody knows who you are. Sorry about that.
You might have to apologize if the screen doesn't freeze if you're going to read all that, but go ahead.
I'm just going to read a little bit of it. Okay, so Command Sergeant Major retired Bart E. Womack served the United States Army with distinction for over 29 years as a professional soldier, contributing immeasurably to the readiness of the armed forces and security of our great nation. So you hold a bachelor in business management from Park University, a master's of business administration from Waynesburg University, and you're a graduate of the United States Army Sergeant Major Academy class of, now this says 48. I think it means 84.
No, it's not associated with the year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was like, I know you aren't that old. Okay. Let's see. You were a drill sergeant, a ranger instructor, and sergeant of the guard at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. You are a two-time combat veteran with the 101st Airborne Division in Iraq and one in the Joint Security Area DMZ, Korea. A few decorations include the 2 Bronze Stars, 1 for Valor, the Legion of Merit, the Drill Sergeant Identification Badge, the Tomb Guard Identification Badge, the Army Ranger Tab, and the Combat Infantryman Badge with Star. Okay. So, and you also wrote Embedded Enemy. So, Bart, can you just kind of tell us a little bit about yourself and where you came from and why you decided to join the Army and the military just in general?
Yeah, so born and raised in Columbus, Ohio. I graduated high school there. I was 17 years old. I wasn't a very good student, so I knew at the time that college wasn't going to be for me right away. So my plan was to wait a year and then attempt my stab at college.
Mm-hmm.
I had been working ever since a paper route. I can't remember what age I was at paper route, 9, 10, 11, 12. I guess you probably couldn't be 9, but probably 11 years old, I believe I started paper route. Then I had some other jobs that they paid pretty well for, a 12-year-old, 13-year-old. So I was used to making my own money.
Yeah.
So anyway, finished high school, and I just kept working. That was my plan for as I waited that year out. And one job that I had, my mother had a car, but she really didn't drive. She had a driver's license, but she really couldn't drive. So she said, I'm buying this car, but it's my car, not your car.
Okay.
The high school every day my senior year, but it wasn't my car. Anyway, so when I finished high school, I drove that car to work every day of the place that I worked at called Sears Distribution Center. And pretty good job.
Mm-hmm.
And my next oldest brother had the car, and then he wrecked the car, and I had to start taking a bus to work. So it's one cold evening in late October. It was cold early, and I had to transfer buses. And in between the transfer, I decided I wanted to wait on the bus. I just started walking to the next stop, and I would catch the transfer somewhere on that next street, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I passed the recruiting station. I said, well, let me go ahead and get warm. And then of course, they had frequented our hallways at the high school and all that, so I kind of knew their pitch and all that. And like, Bart, if you go in here, you got to hear their pitch. Okay, I hear their pitch. I'm going to get warm. Maybe they have some hot chocolate. I wasn't a coffee drinker then. So I go in, and even though the guy's there after hours, it's like 6:30, 7 o'clock, he's still there. So we have a little conversation, and I knew that I was 17 and I couldn't sign to join myself. So it was just like, okay, you talk, I get warm. So he talked, I got warm.
Yeah.
And by the time he finished, okay, it's time for me to go. I called my bus, went home. Probably about a month and a half later, of course, they start calling your house, right?
Yeah.
A month and a half later, every time we would call, my mother wouldn't be there. My mother would have to sign for me because I wasn't 18 years old yet. My birthday was in December. So anyway, I finally told her, that I went there. I said, well, I may have some interest. I'm not sure. We'll wait it out until I'm 18, and I'll make the decision. So that's what we did. So it wasn't until the next year in late January I decided to join the military. So that's how I got into the military. I mean, I knew absolutely nothing. I ended up being an airborne ranger, and I didn't know what airborne was. I didn't know what ranger was. So the closest ranger I knew was Smokey and Yogi. That was it. True story. That's all I knew.
Yeah.
So I knew absolutely nothing. So again, basic training, and the airborne recruiter is coming by and they say, well, we're looking for people to be airborne. And if you want to do that, like, what's that? I said, jumping out of airplanes. You gotta be crazy. And they said it pays $55 more a month. I was like, I'm in. So that's what I ended up doing. So yeah, I really stumbled upon the military in that manner and stayed for 29 and a half years. So it was, I guess, by accident, had my brother not wrecked the car, then it was not in my vision at all. But it turned out to be the best thing that I could have ever done with my life. You meet a few leaders that kind of guide you along the way. You meet some more, you learn some things. I used to call this leadership kit bag of you take things that leaders do and you put them into your kit bag of what you want to do as a leader, and things that you see that you don't like that leaders do, you don't put that in there. Yeah. And that's kind of my career. That's kind of how I built it. I was a drill sergeant at a very young age, 23 years old. Wow. About this before we got on air, but I was 23 years old. Now I was astute to what the military was and how to train, even at 23. But that was the process in those days. So you're taking a person who knows nothing like I did, about the military or any makings of the military, and you're turning them into soldiers repeatedly. And yeah, so very rewarding in the end. You don't think about it while you're doing it. You don't think about the process. You just kind of go through it. They graduate, boom. I mean, sometimes you're graduating in the afternoon, and that evening you're picking up new recruits again. But you learn in the end how to refine training at every single level that you'll use somewhere further in your career. So best thing I ever did. People often ask, like, what was your best assignment or best duty? I say my best duty was at the Tomb of an Unknown Soldier. Okay. Best duty ever. But the best job was Command Sergeant Major. Because you went from zero to, I don't say hero, but to the top. And I would say done right, in my opinion, done right when you're at the top is to do those things that matter most for soldiers. Don't do things just because they've always been done that way. I feel that's the worst response ever in any organization. When you ask, why do we do this? And someone says, well, we always done it. That's usually a time for change. You can change that thing immediately because it's broke, it's bad, it doesn't do what it was intended to do 37 years ago, and people are still doing it. So I try to take all those lessons learned, all those things I didn't like when I was at all those different ranks, and now I'm up here, I can make them different and better for all my soldiers.
Yeah, well, just your explanation of behind the scenes talking about learning how to interact with soldiers and how to teach them in basic training, was very insightful. And to know that you were only 23 years old when you started. Now, how many years did you actually do that?
Two.
2 years.
Yeah.
And you were that insightful for for that young and for only 2 years of doing it?
Yeah, well, you go to drill sergeant school. Drill sergeant school teaches you how to teach, pretty much. Drill ceremonies, basic rifle marksmanship, physical training. They teach you how to teach. They teach you how to instruct. The rest of it has to be you. So some people volunteer to be a drill sergeant. Some people are, what's the term? It's been so long now. In other words, the Army tells them that you're going to be a drill sergeant. Whatever we call that, I can't remember exactly what it is, but the Army says that's what you're going to do. That's your next assignment.
Yeah.
Or you volunteered and you accepted. I would say the Army as a whole is a people business. If you can't get people to do stuff and you can't affect people, and then we call that leadership. But there's a whole bunch of leaders in the military that can't move people. They can't relate to people. You have to be able to do that to be an effective leader. It's not just that rank.
Mm-hmm.
I would often speak at places in the military, especially in the latter part of my career when we had the name and Army Velcroed on our uniform. And I would call someone up. They could be the same rank I was. Then I pull that rank off, the Velcro sound.
Yeah.
Just throw it over here. Now, can you go out there and lead? Are people going to follow you because your name is Williams now? Or were they following that rank? They respect the rank. They respect how you earn and all that type of stuff. They're going to salute the flagpole, blah, blah, blah. But it's this name that is the leader.
Mm-hmm.
What have you learned in all these schools? What do you, Williams or Womack, what do you embody that these thousands of people are going to follow you?
Mm-hmm.
And if you do not embody that rank over there that I just threw, it don't mean nothing.
Mm-hmm.
They're just going to respect that, but not going to respect you, and you're not getting anywhere. This organization is not getting anywhere.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
That's leadership in a nutshell.
Oh yeah, totally. I totally agree with that. So, now tell us about your guarding of the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. How did you get into that, and what was it like?
Well, like you, they looked at me and said, "You're in." Well, so at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, there's 3 reliefs. So I'll start out as relief commander. There's 3 reliefs, right? And the reliefs go by height. So the 3rd relief is the shortest, 5'10" to 6 foot. Second relief, 6 foot to 6'2" First relief is 6'2", pretty much 6'3" on up. In some cases 6'4" on up.
Mm-hmm.
But 5'10" is like the minimum.
Okay.
And that's like 1.5 inch platforms on your shoes. I would say a full 1 inch. No kidding.
Okay.
And so a spot became available for the relief commander of that 3rd relief. And it was me and another guy that were trying out. And I think I want to say our that tryout period was going to be a month, I believe. This is what it started out as. Then that guy quit after 2.5 weeks. So I was kind of the shoe in. I still had to go through all the training. It wasn't like, okay, it's unanimously yours. You still have to make the cut because we'll cut you and we'll start all over, the audition process if you're not good enough. So I still had to go through everything. So it wasn't a cinch, but that's how I got in there. So I did that job for, I guess, calendar-wise, 18 months. But in between that time, I went to the advanced course for my branch, and I also went to Ranger School. While I was at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. So,
okay.
Of all that 18 months of being assigned there, 6 months ish, a little bit more, I was in schools.
Oh, okay. Wow.
So once I finished Ranger School, I came back and I got my badge. That's kind of a badge of honor.
Mm-hmm.
And to get your badge, you have to answer 100 questions, 100 multiple choice questions, as well as your performance outside on the mat. Mm-hmm. So you go there now and you see that the person that comes out that is, has the pistol on their side and is speaking to the crowd, ladies and gentlemen, their name, someone you're about to witness is the changing of the guard. That's the relief commander. Or could be the relief commander. So I did that job for that period of time. Then I went to be a platoon sergeant. Then I came back to be the sergeant of the guard. The sergeant of the guard is the person that's in charge of the whole thing. So I really got a call from the old guard sergeant major saying you're going to go be the SOG.
Mm-hmm.
That's
okay. So What was that like, though, to be there and doing that job? Like,
Hmm.
I know it's historically significant, but just putting it, did you think about the historical significance while you were doing it or not?
Well, I mean, you had that ingrained in your mind because it's part of the test, as well as um, significant people that are buried in the cemetery and just history overall. You're kind of like the walk-in historian. You're the live historian in the cemetery that people are going to have an opportunity, a chance opportunity to encounter. Now there is a person who had a historian job, a civilian job there, but people don't they never saw them.
Mm-hmm.
So when you were not working or just coming in and out of the quarters or whatever, people kind of could tell by the haircut. You didn't look like you were there to watch the event or whatever, so they could tell, right?
Yeah.
Long before we had polo shirts that said it, they could tell.
Mm-hmm.
So they would begin to ask you questions or whatever, and they may ask you questions about who's buried in a certain place in the cemetery, but that was part of the badge test because you could tell them where it is and how to get there.
Mm-hmm.
Because not only did you have to know for the test, you had to go to each one of those graves. That was part of the training.
Okay.
It was, obviously when you're out there, when you're out there on the mat, or if you're out there changing the guard, the reverence of the overall of being there, and the reverence of it existing in the first place, it's going to hit you every single time.
Mm-hmm.
And the way you pay respect and honor to that is in the Sentinel's Creed. There's a line 6 that my standard will remain perfection. So you are perfecting perfection each and every time. I want to say chasing it, like, you have to do it. That standard. The standard is perfection, not getting there, not almost there, not close to perfection.
Mm-hmm.
So that was probably in all of our minds the highest honor that we could do repetitively is be the best you can be. Don't make a mistake,
Mm-hmm.
like ever.
Yeah, because you're encountering grieving families. My cousin is buried out there at Arlington National Cemetery. Um, but yeah, I haven't been out there yet. I want to go eventually. I just
Yeah.
haven't made it out there yet.
Yeah, and I would say and part you reference about the and grieving families and everything. It's not so much that as it is the unknowns. Like of course, no one knows who they are,
Yeah.
but that it is that respect.
Mm-hmm.
There's several poems and everything that we say, but it is he who commands the respect I protect. His bravery made us so proud. Surrounded by well-meaning crowds by day, alone in thoughtful peace of night. His glory when honor, his glory and honor, glory rest under my eternal vigilance.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. I can't imagine the weight on your shoulders standing there every day doing that, but at the same time having the great distinguish and honor to be able to do that as well. And I'm a history nerd, so that would just be right up my alley. So,
It's gonna be special when you go, for sure. It will be special when you go. I remember when I saw it for the first time, I was just in awe of just watching, this precision.
mhm,
Um, but then to be down there and work there, you learn why everything is so precise. I
mhm.
mean, yeah.
So, before we get into the incident that your book covers, what other stuff did you do in the military that you can share with us that you would like to give us an idea of who you were um, going up into this event?
Let's see. So I left the old guard, and so I was promoted 2 times there, and then went to Hawaii. And I was first on in Hawaii. We deployed to Haiti. I think it was Operation Uphold Democracy. That's when they ousted the president back in 94. 95, I guess it was January 95.
Oh, wow. I bet that was interesting.
Yeah, I think they ousted him in October-ish of 94. We went there in 95.
Hmm.
And then the battalion I was in deactivated, and then I was moved up to be the first sergeant of HAC brigade, or the brigade that I was in. And it's a job that I really wanted to do because I knew it would prepare me for the next rank if I was promoted to sergeant major, that job would prepare me for that, and it did. So I left there, and then excuse me, I left there, and then I was assigned 6th Ranger Battalion. I'm sorry, 6th Ranger, 6th Ranger Battalion in the Ranger Department. What that was the Florida phase of Ranger School for training. So I haven't gone through Ranger School. You know how it is when you go through, but you know of it, I would say, because when you're going through the training, you don't remember everything. You remember a whole lot of it, and some of you remember all of it. You know what I mean? But you're going through the training, you're sleep deprived, you're tired, you're hungry through that whole thing. You're just like, gotta get through. You gotta pass my patrol and get through. And when you go back and you're on the other side of it as the trainer, it's completely different. And I was the first sergeant, and so I would assign all the students not their grades, but what patrols they were going to do. So everyone has to do a certain amount of patrols, and you have to complete your patrol. That's the last phase. So everyone had to complete their patrols. So I'm looking at all the numbers of how many patrols they have, how many need to graduate. They need to complete the patrols first and get a go on them in order to graduate. But you're assigning every student their patrols. This big old board, that you're constantly as well. You're going out there as a trainer as well. Mm-hmm. And from that position, myself and the commander, we had to be out there on airborne day, which means it was a jump, or waterborne day, which means we were, the trainees were going, the Rangers were going down, the river in the boat. Mm-hmm. So one of us had to be there on each one of those days as a safety precaution. So that was huge in that now I could go back once I was assigned to my next unit and train people who wanted to go to Ranger School, an in-depth process, if you will, to prepare them to be able to go and complete Ranger School. Mm-hmm. So when I was time sergeant major, so I leave from there and I go to the Sergeant Major Academy. That was the class 48 thing, not my age or when I was born or when I graduated. But once I finished that, then I was assigned to 101st Airborne Division as a battalion sergeant major in a battalion called No Slack. Okay. But I was able to take those things from not only my Ranger School experience, but as a Ranger instructor to prepare soldiers that wanted to go to Ranger School. Okay. Yeah, so it's very integral, working there and being able to train them and then train other soldiers throughout the whole brigade to be ready for Ranger School, even though the division had its own pre-Ranger, but now I could get my soldiers ready for pre-Ranger even. Okay, and what years when were you doing that? So I was in 101st from 1998 to 2005. Okay. Yeah. My brother-in-law was in 101st at that time. Okay. Okay. So after you did that, 9/11 happened. Where were you when that happened? Yeah, on that exact day, I went from battalion to being a brigade sergeant major, brigade combat team sergeant major. And on that day, we had there was a post-wide first sergeant run that the commander would have every quarter. I think he had this run every quarter, every month, something. I can't remember. That was that morning. The division sergeant major was, I think he was on leave, can't remember. So I was taking his place. So I was on that run with the first sergeants and the post commander, the division commander. And we just finished that run and going back to my headquarters to shower and everything. And I finished showering, had pants on and everything, had one boot on. And my executive officer says, "Sergeant Major, come in here and look." So he was watching the television. And what had already happened was the first plane had hit the tower. Mm-hmm. And then as I was coming in, I was probably in there 15 seconds, and I see the second plane hit the tower.
Yeah.
And because I hopped over there, one boot on, one boot off, and caught it. And I said, "Oh, this is a movie." I said, "No, it's CNN. Look." And of course, you look down there at the bottom, and it's CNN.
Yeah.
And yeah, like right before your eyes, that second plane, which was, unbelievable.
Yeah, I watched it too.
Yeah. So I go on, and there was always a breakfast. The commander hosted a breakfast for all the first sergeants. And again, I'm sitting in for the division sergeant major, so I go to that breakfast, and he's a little late, expectedly, right? Because the news has gotten to everywhere. And a little later, and he finally comes in, and so we know this meeting is not going to be that long. Some people had not heard of what had happened, and for those who had seen it or had awareness of it, we're talking about it. So that was obviously the topic of discussion before we knew any specifics. So by the time the division commander showed up, like the post was on lockdown, like you couldn't leave. No one could go on, and no one could go off base, all posts, I should say. So we're on lockdown. And he talked about the security measures that he's putting in place right away. And pretty much the breakfast, ended with that. And we were all going back to our units, waiting for the orders of what we would do. And my unit being assisting, because the MPs guarded the gates at those times only. But now we were saying we're reinforcing the gates with soldiers. So my brigade ended up with certain gates that we were protecting. Schools and everything that was on the post as well.
So after that happened, how long? So did you go out? Was your deployment to Kuwait your first deployment out to the actual war on terror after 9/11?
Yeah. So what happened after that? So it's obviously September of 2001, and as the Department of Defense figured out what our reaction would be, of course, we know that it ended up being Afghanistan first. So another brigade ended up going to Afghanistan, just one brigade out of 3 brigades in the 101st Airborne Division. We actually went to what's called GRTC to do training. Didn't quite understand that at all. Like, we were already trained, we knew that, but we were scheduled to go, and it was like we had to punch a ticket. But no other northern unit from the 101st was going to Afghanistan. So okay, it made sense. We thought, okay, let's get this over with, and then by the time we come out, we'll be going over there or somewhere, right? So that kind of went on for a year and some change until, and we had to change commander of division commanders as well as brigade commanders before we finally got the orders to go to Iraq. So Kuwait was our intermediate staging base. So that's where we kind of prepared for war and everything. So that's what Kuwait was for the whole, really for all of the Army. Was that intermediate staging base in different camps throughout Kuwait.
Yeah.
Ours is it's called Camp Pennsylvania.
So you went there in 2001, or did you make it there?
2003.
2003. That's when you first got there?
Right. So we got some parts of us were there in February, the rest was in March 2003.
Okay, so when you get to Camp Pennsylvania, what is your job, and what is your main responsibilities?
It is again, that's an intermediate staging base. Is just preparing for war. All of our stuff is shipped over there. We're waiting for the ships to come in with all of our equipment, all of our vehicles, all those types of things are coming in. We went over, I think I probably got in country about the 3rd of March. All of our stuff finally, we got it off the ships about mid-March, about the 15th, somewhere in there. And other equipment that we couldn't carry on the plane, all that stuff was on the ship. We get it about that time, clean it up and everything, get it ready for the invasion of Iraq. And we're still waiting for that order, as well as, all the armed forces is waiting for that order. So that was really just the whole time there is just a preparation. Probably about and we're doing all kinds of different plans and mission plans and intelligence, excuse me, on the enemy changes. We're getting new information in, throwing other stuff out. Something else comes in. So our plans is kind of constantly changing. Not knowing exactly what day we're going to be crossing the border, still awaiting, that specific order.
Yeah.
That's what
Okay.
happens. Called ISB, or intermediate staging base.
Okay. So take us into, I guess the day of, what is it, March 20, was it 23rd?
23rd, yes.
23rd of 2003. So take
Right.
us into that day, what had been going on and what were you doing?
So we started with March 22nd. We had just put our final touches on our particular orders and everything that we were going to do. So this is a Saturday, and at that time, we were last told that we would be invading Iraq on that coming Thursday. So
Okay.
about 5 days away.
Okay.
But really, we had put the final touches on our orders about midday that day, March 22nd.
Okay.
The unit that was there before us had a television. And so the unit was there, the brigade was there before us on that camp. We just kind of fell into their place. They were tankers. They moved out closer to the border in their tanks. But they had a television that was in the headquarters tent. And in that tent slept myself, the commander, and executive officer. So I found out how to get American golf on the television.
Yeah.
And I watched golf the 2 previous days. I'm a big Tiger Woods fan, so I watched him play in what's called the Arnold Palmer Invitational. That's what it's called now.
Mm-hmm.
And I was prepared to watch the 3rd round. He was already in the lead, and I was all ready for the 3rd round. I went to the little shopette and got some snacks and everything, and it wasn't coming on until midnight. But I'm ready for this, right?
Uh-huh.
So I'm sitting at a table. I have my computer open. I'm doing
Now
bill
you're in
pay.
a tent, right? Correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yep. And got some snacks going on. Television is about 5.5 feet to my right. And our ammo just came early that day, about midday, pretty much dusk, to the point where the commander told the subordinate units that you can issue it in darkness if you want to, with flashlights or whatever, or you can wait till the morning when it's daylight and put a guard on it overnight. It's your choice. So I would guess maybe about 7 o'clock or so, my driver brings me my ammunition. It's 9mm ammunition for my 9mm, right? And I have all these magazines on the table as well. So I'm watching Tiger Woods play golf, have my bill pay going on, eating snacks, and loading magazines. Everything right there.
Okay.
So the tent flap would move in the wind. You could hear it scratch up against the floor, the wooden pallets of the tent.
Yeah.
So it happened one time. I didn't pay much attention to it because it would happen frequently. Then it did it again. When it did it the second time, I noticed that these sparks were coming to my right front. I'm sitting at the end of this really a long table. And I'm sitting at the end so I can see right down at the floor, these sparks. So I think it's some type of grenade. I don't know what type of grenade is sparking before it goes off, but that is one of them, if there's such a thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I jump up immediately. Now the executive officer is in the tent as well. He's on the other side of the table, so he can see what I see. But the commander, because our orders were, they put the final touches on those way early. He'd gone to bed at 10 o'clock at night. That was the first time in all these days in Kuwait that he'd gone to bed that early.
Mm-hmm.
So I see those sparks. I said, this is some type of grenade. I got to get him up. So I run to the back of the tent to get him up, and take him, tell him to get up. There's a grenade about to go off up front. We got to get up and get out of here. So where I was sitting at my desk was a fluorescent light, and by the time I got to the back of the tent, the whole tent was pitch dark, like you couldn't see nothing.
Now, I read in the research that the man who did this cut the generators, the power to the generators.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so at least in your area, or was it the whole camp?
It was in my area of the camp, so all the headquarters area.
Mhm.
Yes, which controlled the power to those tents. Yeah.
Mhm.
So, I get the commander up, so we gotta get out here. Grenade's gonna go off. So I counted 3, and we're gonna run down this middle aisle. Now the tent had the exit was in the front, but there was also one in the back. But it was all tied up and closed up, if you will, because the air conditioning unit was right behind it.
Mhm.
So it didn't make sense to try to go through that little bit of space. So you really couldn't get through there.
Mhm.
So the only exit was the front.
So you had to run past the grenade?
Correct.
Oof.
Yeah. So I was on the side of where the grenade came into the tent, and I put him on the other side as if to protect him.
Mhm.
And so I counted 3, and we start running. And as I'm running, like my arm is armor, I put my arm up to protect myself, like that was going to do something. But
Yeah.
anyway, we start running down there, and straight through, I get outside, and he's not there. And I'm calling for him in hushed tones. I know we're into some type of attack. I don't know what kind yet.
Mhm.
So when I'm calling for him, it's like, sir. I want to be loud and silhouette myself, right? And I don't hear an answer. So he's not there, and then I hear a gunshot. And I knew that it was the executive officer that got shot. Because as I was running through the tent, and there's this other part called a little vestibule area,
Mhm.
as I was running through there, I could feel that he was just on the other side of me as I was running through already. And I heard a gunshot. So I pulled my pistol out, and I cocked the pistol and pointed. Well, I attempt to cock it. What happens is I had a magazine in my weapon, but I didn't have any ammunition because I was loaded magazines. So what happens if you have a magazine in your weapon and you pull the bolt to the rear, it doesn't go forward.
Mhm.
So as a round, it goes. If you don't have a round, it goes. So I was screwed.
Yeah.
So I didn't hear
With all
both.
that ammo on that table.
Slam on the table, yeah. So I'm like this, but I can't do anything. So my first thought is you don't bring a knife to a gunfight, and you don't bring an empty pistol to a gunfight.
Right.
So I need ammunition. So the TOC is behind me about 30 yards, and so I turn around and I run to the top. I'm running in there saying I need an M4, I need ammo, and I need nods, night vision devices so I can see.
Now,
So
Bart, can I stop you there? Now, did the grenade actually explode? Did you hear it explode? Or
yeah, good point. Good question. So what happened with the first thing that went in there? It was an incendiary grenade that starts fires.
Mhm.
That's why it sparked.
Oh, okay.
Didn't go off. Yeah. Now I knew we were in a land of not quite right. I just thought that was a not quite right grenade that's sparking before it goes off. I wouldn't go, oh, let me go. Oh, look at that. Oh, that's what it is. Yeah, I wouldn't
Yeah.
do it. I saw sparks and it was gone.
Yeah.
Get the commander up. Yeah. But what happened? The commander didn't make it out of the tent because a frag grenade was thrown into the tent, and it knocked him back to where he slept.
Okay, so 2 grenades were actually thrown in, the incendiary and then the fragment grenade.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And as you said, you just didn't hear it. It just didn't. There's something about adrenaline that I had never experienced.
Mhm.
Although I heard the shot, I didn't hear that.
Okay.
Kind of an oxymoron, but that's the truth.
No, I get it. I understand
Yeah.
that.
So I go to the TOC, and I tell them, give me an M4 ammunition and the nods. So while they're getting that, I'm putting guards on the floor down in the prone to guard the door I came in, and then the people that are there, it's a night shift. Now it's, just at the 1 a.m, spreading them all over the top to protect every entrance.
Mm-hmm.
And I finally get the ammo and everything. Now I'm pissed. I kicked a few chairs. Like, how did the enemy get into our camp? That's what I'm saying. Rhetorical.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I had gone out and checked the guard towers, and they were doing all the right things. So I couldn't figure out how they got into the camp. The guards must have gone to sleep. That's the only way it could have happened. Now, this camp is, I always tell people, 10 football fields big, but probably double that. It was huge.
Mm-hmm.
And all around it was 12-foot berm that's just dirt. So for the enemy to get in, they'd have to scale that. They'd have to come up that 12-foot high berm into the dirt. Like, it's almost impossible, because you would just sink down with every step. Then once you get to the top, you have to climb over concertina wire without guards seeing you.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously that's what had to have happened. So I finally get the ammo and the nods and everything, and my weapon, and I go back to my tent so I can try to find a commander and executive officer, and they're not there. So I'll go back to the top. I tell someone to go out and try to find them while I try to find the enemy.
Mm-hmm.
But I couldn't look for them. Well, I guess maybe I didn't want to try to look for them and the enemy at the same time. It's a different posture if I'm just looking for the enemy. So I wanted someone to look for them while I look for the enemy. So when I come out the second time, now there's people out there. There was no one out of our guys the first time I was out.
Mm-hmm.
So I come across someone. He says, "So Major, what's going on?" I said, "I don't know." I said, "Major Romaine is shot," and then he says, "Well, Captain Seaford is shot." So that's when we knew we had 2 people shot. By that time, a second frag grenade had been thrown into the second tent, and the frag grenade explodes at 15-degree radius and above. So by the time the gunshot and grenade went off in the first tent, the people in the second tent had begun to get up and stand up. So where they had been asleep before, they might have been okay below that 15-degree radius, but once they began to stand up, they became, more of a target, more vulnerable. And a few of them got hit pretty hard with shrapnel.
Mm-hmm.
Then by the time they got to the third tent, they began exiting their tent. One person that made it to the exit realized he didn't have his ammo, went back to get his ammo, and then once he got his ammo, started to exit the tent. By that time, the grenade was rolled in, and it exploded 17 inches from where he was.
Oh, wow.
As well as others that were close to that grenade coming in.
Mm-hmm.
So we're looking for the enemy. A medic that came over the radio. Well, I had called one of our subordinate units to get some reinforcements over to our area. Now, again, how big this area is, our little part of the headquarters is kind of in the middle. Maybe we have like 130 some odd people there, but there's 5,000 total in the camp.
Yeah.
Several infantry battalions, spread out. They have 800 plus people in their battalion, but they're 350 meters away from the headquarters. So I wanted them to come over for reinforcements. So while they're coming across, our casualties began to be triage. We know we got one person shot. We got people injured in tents 2 and tents 3 pretty badly. And so we triage them to figure out which ones we can put on the litters first. And FLA is sent to our area, and we begin loading those casualties to take them to the aid station that's on our camp.
Mm-hmm.
So while that process is going on, at the same time, sirens going off on the camp, people going to their bunkers as they're supposed to do by SOP, and we have this effort to look for the enemy, and we have no sight of the enemy. Now, most of us think that this is a coordinated attack, and when some of the grenades went into the tent, they thought it was mortar. So they're looking at the top of the tent to see if there's a hole and see if the mortar came in that way, but there's
Oh,
no
wow.
hole.
Hmm.
So, but still thinking it's a coordinated attack. The FLA takes a few of the injured over to the aid station. Helicopter, medevac helicopter comes in. The first group is loaded on a helicopter to take to the combat support hospital. It's about a 1 minute ride away. I mean, it's literally 500 meters off our camp in a different direction. About a 1 minute ride. I mean, up, down that fast.
Okay.
That first one takes off and goes. The second one lands. They begin to load that second one. As they're loading it, there's this huge explosion in the sky. Now we don't know what it is. We assume that it's a scud, but don't really know. So now it really cements the fact that this is a coordinated attack.
Yeah, I can only imagine.
Yeah. Fast forward, we learned that the Patriot battery that's on a different camp, one of our Patriot batteries, had spotted a fast-moving object in the sky. Now they can hear these explosions even though they're not on our camp. You know, it's in the desert, middle of the night, sound travels. This fast-moving object coming through the pops up on their screen. They shoot it down.
Yeah.
Well, we learned the next day that it was a British ally fighter jet returning from a mission.
Oh, wow.
Now we have a friendly fire incident.
Did that person pass away?
Oh yeah.
I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah. Two
Yeah.
pilots.
Okay.
So we're still looking for the enemy on the ground. But what that incident in the air, what it caused was a second helicopter that was loaded to make that 1 minute ride to the cache had severely wounded people on it, but couldn't go there. They were instructed to go to the next cache that was about 75 kilometers away.
Okay.
That likely caused Captain Seaford his life.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So again, we're still looking for insurgents here. I go into talk and say something had to have changed on this camp. We've been here for 20 some days, and nothing like this was even close to happening. Like no one had tried to breach our perimeter.
Mm-hmm.
So something changed, and then someone says, "Well, Sergeant Major, these interpreters came in last night. Bingo, has to be them. Go find them." So search goes out for the interpreters. Not that they're hiding, but we find them. Got them on their knees, hands behind their back, rifles pointed at their heads. We take them into custody, interrogate them, just to learn they have nothing to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
So now we're back to square one, looking for insurgents, and I mean, there's no clue of these insurgents at all. And I'm thinking, if these guys can come in here and create all this havoc, wound this many people, create this devastation, and leave no sign, and the war hadn't started yet, when we cross that border, we're gonna get annihilated because these guys are much better than we anticipated.
Yeah.
So the commander was concussed from that grenade. Again, it exploded, knocked him back into the area, into a sleeping area. By now he's in the top. And he says we got to get accountability of personnel. So a call goes out on the radio to get accountability of personnel. And then we learned that one person is missing, and so are grenades and ammunition. So a Sergeant Hassan Akbar is missing, and so are grenades and ammunition. So he becomes the number one suspect.
Now, did a lot of people know him, or was he kind
Not
of
in the
a
headquarters. No, pretty unknown in the headquarters.
okay?
Yeah. The intelligence officer, he had been checking bunkers all night, walking around with his pistol in his hand. He'd go to the bunker and say, "Who we have in here?" And some people in the bunker would say who they were, make sure they were doing all the right things. So once we learned that it's Sergeant Akbar, we come out and talk. Me and him came out pretty much simultaneously. He goes one way, I go another. The way he goes, he sees a bunker that he hadn't gone to all night. So he said, "Let me check this bunker." I go in a different direction, and I'm talking to several of our leaders and telling them that it's a guy named Sergeant Akbar, going to have the same uniform that we have on. Go disseminate that information to your soldiers. I wasn't going to tell them how, Now, how do you look for a friendly person that, well, somebody that's supposed to be friendly that's now the no one suspect of doing this all night? You guys can figure out how you're going to tell them that. I'm not going to, try to explain that to you.
Mm-hmm.
So while I was doing that, the intel officer, Major Warren, went to that bunker. So he's walking around again, has that pistol in his hand, and he says, "Who do we have here?" Which means who's in the bunker. And response is Sergeant Akbar. So Akbar didn't know we're looking for him.
Mm-hmm.
And there's another person in the bunker, and that person says who he is. And then Major Warren has the wherewithal to holster his weapon so he doesn't look like a threat. And then just keeps walking toward the bunker, gets down Akbar and takes him down.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how he's apprehended.
Okay.
So I'm while that was happening, I had gone to my tent to get my helmet and gear and ammo and everything. And so by the time I come out, while I'm in the tent, I had to use my light to see where everything was and to find my stuff. And I noticed that a grenade had exploded in my tent, that my sleeping area is just, shattered into pieces, shrapnel everywhere.
Oh,
Like
wow.
where I slept, there was on this little mat, and the bivy sack, that the mat has all these holes in it. The bivy sack has all these shrapnel holes in it because the grenade came in and went right to my sleeping area, and that's when it exploded. That whole side of the tent has like you see these little stars on there. Those are shrapnel holes in that tent.
Mm-hmm.
It looked like that,
Wow.
and that's right where I slept. So
Mm-hmm.
now I realize that had I been asleep, not watching Tiger Woods play golf, then I wouldn't be talking to you right now.
Yeah. Thank God for Tiger.
Yeah. Yeah. So I come out of my tent, and then I'm walk over to the area where he's apprehended. So I'm pissed. Like, you tried to kill me, so I'm going to do something to you. That was my thought.
I
That was
can.
I don't know what it's going to be yet, but it's going to be something.
Mm-hmm.
And as I get closer, I get right there, and then someone else kind of runs up. "Why'd you do this? You hurt my friend." So I have to hold that person back. So that blew whatever thought I had. So we probably should thank that guy too, because I wouldn't be talking to you. I'd be incarcerated or something. Who knows?
Yeah.
I don't know. I was pretty pissed. Then someone hands me his weapon. So as I was exiting my tent, I noticed there was a piece of brass on the ground, which was the expended brass from when the executive officer got shot.
Okay.
I think when he gives me his weapon, I smell it to see if it's been recently fired, and it had.
Mm-hmm.
He also tell me that he had the grenades that he was using was there because he still had more. So what he did,
Oh, wow.
he was on guard, and he was on guard with someone else, but he told that person it was close to their time of being relieved. So he said, "Well, I got it. You go ahead and go to sleep. I'll just stay on until the next relief comes on." That was his opportunity to start opening up crates and getting ammo and grenades and stuff out. He took his protective mask, threw it away, threw out a carrier, and put these grenades into the carrier.
Mm-hmm.
So remember all night he threw an incendiary grenade in my tent. The rest were frags. Threw a frag in my tent, then 2 more frags. In this carrier was 1 more incendiary grenade and 3 more frag grenades.
Mm.
So one of the sergeants asked me what should he do with the grenades. I'd say just throw them back in the bunker. That way, they weren't going to go off by themselves, but if they were, the bunker was the best place for them.
Yeah.
Took the weapon and went back over to my tent. So the magazine he had in his weapon had that expended brass by my tent been fired out of that lot of rounds that was in the magazine in his weapon, then they would match.
Mm-hmm.
There's this thing called Dodic numbers. These numbers on the back, they're the same lot, and they would match.
Yeah.
So I put that weapon with that brass and put a guard on there and said, "You're not relieved. I'm the only person that can relieve you.
Mm-hmm.
No one else can come by and tell you to leave." So Akbar's flex cuffed and taken away to another part of the camp and guarded until CID shows up. And a couple of our guys asked him why he did it.
Mm-hmm.
And I could hear him say, "To keep y'all from killing our women and raping our children."
Wow.
And at the time, I didn't understand what our meant when he said that couldn't put two and two together.
Mm-hmm.
Now he was of Muslim religion, and that's what that meant. I later find out I didn't connect the dots at the time.
Yeah. Before we go further, let me show pictures of Captain Seifert. Okay. I don't know if that's showing that or not. We'll see. Okay. Oh, there we go. Okay, so this is Army Captain Christopher Seifert. And then this is Air Force Major Gregory Stone. And then there were also 14 other people who were injured. Correct?
Correct.
And what kind of injuries were those? Were those major to minor or all?
There were a few minor ones. So the commander, for example, we had 2 pieces of shrapnel in his arm. Not like bled like a pig, but it ended up just being 2 pieces. But his whole area back there where he slept, because again, it knocked him back. I mean, there was blood everywhere, just from the 2 pieces. But that's what flying razor blades does to you. Now, Major Stone, Captain Seifert was shot point blank in the back. We came out at third tent. Like I said, people after the first explosion, second explosion, they began to come out of the tent. Well, he was one of them, and so as he was coming out, Akbar was kind of going in, threw the grenade in, and before it exploded, came back out the tent, shot Captain Seifert in the back, and just kept running.
Wow.
So he died of that wound, and Major Stone died 2 days later from 83 grenade shrapnel wounds in his body.
Yeah, I can't even.
There were other severe injuries. So 6 of the people that were evacuated never returned. I mean, obviously, everyone was critical to the mission. Some were critical to our movement from Iraq. I'm sorry, from Kuwait into Iraq as we did that via convoy. So complete utter devastation. Now Akbar wasn't the subordinate unit that Akbar was assigned to. Again, was about 350 meters away from where the headquarters was.
Okay.
And he could have killed and wounded more people where he was than where the headquarters was. But chose not to do that. His thought was, if I take out the headquarters, then the body will follow. The body is all the soldiers assigned to the entire brigade combat team. And it almost worked. I mean, obviously, he completed the attack, but from a mindset of the body following. So, later on in the day, again, it started having a 1 o'clock in the morning. So now it's midday, 2 o'clock-ish or so. CID's doing their investigation, and we had to take everything out of the tent so they could do that. And people were just sitting outside, and along this wall there's these Texas barriers, but they had this little concrete seat in front of them, and people were sitting along that. And you could see them, mourning and grieving everything as well. They are expected to, but I viewed it as this unit is not prepared to fight a war. Like the war hadn't started yet. And the unit was not in a position to go fight a war from my viewpoint. So I just said, everyone get up from here. Get up, get out of here. I don't care where you go. I know you got to grieve, but you're not going to do it here. Go someplace where I can't see you. I don't care where you go, but you're not going to do that here. Now, I don't know how pivotal that was to prepare them toward the actual war. But I didn't want someone coming by and seeing that, mainly the division commander, and saying, well, the whole 101st Airborne Division is going to invade Iraq, but you guys are not, because you're not ready. And
Yeah.
who knows when you're going to be ready.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I didn't want anybody to see that. And truth is, we weren't ready. I mean, it's my unit, so as a whole, I can say we weren't ready.
Mm-hmm.
I don't say that Bart Womack wasn't at the time, but I knew as a unit we weren't, and I'm responsible for that, right?
Yeah.
So get out of here. Go do what you got to do, but don't do it here. The best thing that happened to us was that I told you earlier we were supposed to leave that Thursday, which is 5 days away. We ended up leaving that Tuesday.
Oh, wow.
So really, really about that, it ended up being about 50 some hours after the attack.
So they pushed you right out into it.
Yeah. Well, the whole division did.
Yeah.
The whole thing moved up, but that was the saving grace that we were able to put this whole thing in our rearview mirror.
Mm-hmm. So, so your mission now is to kind of let everybody know that the enemy is anywhere. I mean, it could be your next door neighbor, it could be, your boyfriend or your girlfriend or whatever. You just don't know. And some of the red flags that I found while I was doing my research is that it says Akbar's superiors considered his performance in the army substandard. While assigned to the 326th Engineer Battalion, he was demoted from a squad leader position and given lower level tasks. Fellow soldiers said that Akbar was isolated, rarely in the company of others, and was seen talking to himself. In Akbar's earlier years with the unit, superiors had noted the sergeant had an attitude problem. Military officials attributed Akbar's motive in the immediate case to resentment. Akbar was reported as having been recently reprimanded for insubordination and was told he would not join his unit's push into Iraq.
Yeah, I can tell you this. I'm sure there was quite a few substandard soldiers, to get that on the record.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
There's quite a few people that's been demoted in rank.
Mm-hmm.
There's quite a few people who have attitude problems. All right. These are still people at the end of the day.
Yep.
But I will point out a key in terms of a sign, in my opinion. And I'll get to that, and I'm kind of do a circle here, but I want to address it while you have it on the screen.
Yeah.
So it always troubled me that what did he present that we missed overall as a unit? Like, what did we miss? And especially those that were, in his company and platoon that would assault long before I would have.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what was missed? So what was missed, I like to call it Rudolph not playing in the reindeer games. No, they didn't let Rudolph play. In this particular case, if everyone's over here doing this thing and you over here isolated, that's a sign. It's not a sign that when ammo comes, I'm going to kill you. But if you're deployed in an environment like that, getting ready to cross the border for the war, the sign is maybe the soldier has issues at home. Maybe their parent is going through surgery, just got a bad diagnosis. Maybe they're worrying about how their family is going to get through. Maybe this, maybe that at home. Maybe they are afraid of fighting this war. Maybe they're afraid of dying. Maybe they're afraid of getting injured. The point is, there was something there in that isolation that warranted a question.
Mm-hmm.
What's wrong? Then you find out it's the family. You find out it's this. You find out I'm scared. You find out, but some behavior begs a question. Now I'll move forward, and I'm going to hit that a little bit more.
Yeah.
So in terms of a sign, if that presented itself, that was something in the beg the question, right? But here's the thing that we would have never known. And that is, we learned 2 years later in the trial, this happened 2003, trials 2005, that he kept a diary.
Mm-hmm.
And in his diary, he had written in 1993, I do not like the military. They have too much control over people's lives. I suppose I'm just anti-government. As a Muslim should see himself only as a Muslim only. His loyalty should be only to Islam. I'll halt there for a second and tell you that religion doesn't pull the trigger. People do.
Yeah.
You can be radicalized, you can be an extremist, but that religion didn't pull the trigger.
Yeah.
Next one, 1996. Anyone who stands in front of me shall be considered the enemy and dealt with accordingly. 1996. Destroying America was my plan as a child, as a juvenile, and in college. My life will not be complete unless America is destroyed. Destroying America is my greatest goal.
Wow.
1998, he joins the Army.
Mm-hmm.
February 2003. Remember, this is March 2003. I'm not going to do anything as long as I stay here, Fort Campbell. But as soon as I'm in Iraq, I'm going to try to kill as many of them as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So all of what I read you was things that he had written in his diary.
Yep.
Most before he even joined the Army. So this attack, not exactly how it went down, an attack to destroy America however he sees fit to destroy it piece by piece, was already in the works.
Mm-hmm.
So, like I said, wasn't necessarily playing the reindeer games, begged the question. The answer was never going to be this.
Mm-hmm.
It was never going to be that. But unbeknownst to us, that's what it was. So what I learned from it, go ahead.
I was just going to ask, have they changed the way that they vet people since this incident?
Change, that's a strong word. I would say after this incident, I don't necessarily know if they looked at it more closely. I would say that it's evolved more as of late, the last 7 to 10 years, more so than 2004, 2005, etc.
Okay.
So what I learned from this is that we don't go home with people at night. We didn't go home with him, so we didn't know what he was writing in his diary.
Mm-hmm.
He showed up at work every day. Okay, not being the best performance, but is that a flag that says I'm going to kill you? It's because I don't perform well? No.
Mm-hmm.
Like I told you, there's many of them.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But not going home with them at night, we don't know what people write in their diary. We don't know how they're becoming radicalized about anything that they're doing. They show up and work every day. They wear those boots. They wear that uniform. They have their branch of service on their chest. And we just figure that they're saluting the flagpole just like we are. They took the same oath to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic, just like we did. So we expect the same things. We expect those values for people to uphold those things just like we do.
Mm-hmm.
So my takeaway is that everyone's not created equal. Just because they wear a uniform, that don't mean nothing. That we have to look. We have to look a little bit deeper into that, because it's not the same.
No, I agree.
This quote from that is that if it happened, if the person in uniform does it, then no profession, level of education, ideology, or religion is above reproach. There is no profile. The insider threat is closer than you think.
No, I agree because through all of my research and I wish your book was on Audible because I usually consume my books that way because I have migraines, so it's hard for me to read. But what the one thing, the common theme that kept running through my head is A lot of people are naive to who the average soldier is. The average soldier is usually running to escape their life in some form or fashion. It's most people who go into the military go in because they have to, not because they want to, I think. And we're all running from either poverty or bad circumstances or the law or whatever, and me growing up in a military town, so I grew up in a military town. My family was from Fort Sill, and I just remember always being told from an early age from everybody, and also my dad was a veteran and my stepdad was a veteran as well. So I had both sides of the coin, but I always was told, that the military brings its problems with them. And a military town is like an amalgamation of all the problems of the military rolled up into one. There's some really, really amazing and great things about growing up in that environment, because you really grow up without the idea of color and things like that. Diversity is so just the norm, and everybody is just fluid with each other. And but uh but there are the bad seeds, and that there is a reason why there's a lot of gangs in military towns and things like that, because they bring it with them. So I just, that's what I was thinking about.
Yeah, the military can only recruit society.
Yeah.
So what's in the military is society.
Yeah.
What we hope happens is that we make this change, that we're able to make this change, and that change is that it's not brainwashing. The military is a way of life, and we're going to teach you structure, we're going to teach you discipline, we're going to teach you values, and it is the hope that those values stick, and that's why we reiterate them frequently.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like frequently. That's the reason why. But even in that time, society has shifted so much since then. But still, we can only recruit society.
Mm-hmm.
But possibly making that change of those people is even a tougher task once they do get inside the military.
Yeah.
We have taught them to be about something, believe in something. We are stressing that on our youth, younger and younger.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, everyone's asked at a young age where you want to be when you grow up, but it goes beyond that. We're making them choose something at 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 years old. Like, choose a path, choose a belief, stick with it. If you don't believe in something, and you'll fall for anything, that type of, and that's embedded in you, and they do.
Yeah.
So what we don't realize is that now they're forming an ideology, and they can become radicalized about it. And then parents are like, whose child are you? Because you didn't get that from me. Well, you told them to go be something, so they did.
Yeah.
And now you can't control it. It's out of control. And now they're leaving home, or they're going to do whatever they want to do in relationship to that ideology, and where they become radicalized about it in your house. And now you lost control. But that is also the society that we're recruiting, because we have no choice. There's no draft. So that's all we're ever going to get.
Yeah.
We feel that leadership structure is going to change them in some way. Now they're joining the military to try to kill fellow soldiers while they're deployed.
Yeah.
But Akbar was way ahead of his time. No one expected that in the military at all. Obviously me and no one in the military. Like, to this day, they call that a terrorist attack.
Yeah, and it was the first one since Vietnam, and the one in Vietnam was more out of like a personal problem, correct?
Yeah, I don't like you, so I'm going to do this.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing should never be said about this attack is never, ever, ever you slap somebody in the mouth or you hear them say the word fragging. That's what happened in Vietnam. If I don't like you, I'm fragging the officers or whatever. That's not what this was.
Mm-hmm.
Because you know what? Frag is not associated with. Frag is not associated with. It is my goal to destroy America. It was my goal as a child. It was my goal as a juvenile. Destroying America is my greatest goal. It has nothing to do with that.
Mm-hmm.
So you pop them in the mouth as hard as you can if you ever hear someone say that.
Mm-hmm.
That is not what this was.
Yeah.
So my message for the world is that if it can happen in a close-knit brother and sisterhood of the armed forces, then this can happen at any campus, community, organization, at any time and anywhere. Domestic terrorism is our new reality. And that's what we have to get ready for.
Yeah, it's so scary. We lived in a bubble as far as we always thought that, it was going to be an outsider. Because, I mean, I grew up, like I said, in Fort Sill, where in the 80s, it was nothing for us to have a drill, to hide under our desks because the Russians were coming, It was always the outsiders that were coming to get us. It was never the people from the inside. And this incident and then the one in Fort Hood, I believe, are the two.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is a copycat world. And like I said, you asked me, had the military changed anything in terms of how we recruit? And I answered that for you. But because this was never declared anything and never really done anything about it, now we had a war going on. In fact, we had two wars. We had one, global war on terrorism that was happening in two different countries.
Yeah.
So obviously busy from that perspective. I get it. But that doesn't mean you compromise on everything else. Because in compromising, you allowed another attack to happen from someone that was radicalized, same ideology and all those things. You allowed that to happen. Mm-hmm. And where it's pretty much copycat. He saw his brother get away with it. I mean, and not get away with it, do it. So they're like, well, I'm going to do it too. Because no one's doing anything to stop it. And just like the rest of the world, just like all the other crimes, they're copycat. So we did the same thing. That's all.
And neither one of these meant. No, actually, Akbar, he got the death penalty, but he got a stay of execution or something like that?
No stay. His final appeal has been exhausted. So both of them there's 4 people on death row. 2 of them committed the same attack. So we have Hassan Akbar, and then we have Nader Hassan. Actually share the same name, right? Did the same attack. They are number 2 and number 3, respectively, to be executed. In the date is 4092.
4092.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm being facetious. I say that because the last person to be executed was 1961. So stand by.
Okay. Yeah. Hurry up.
Style, right? Hurry up and wait. You had your last appeal has been exhausted. Now you just wait until, I don't know, 2061. Yeah, just wait for it. Again, it hadn't happened in whatever the math is of 1961 till now.
So what do you do? What do you do to help people in your daily life? What do you do as a business to help people mitigate their I can't remember what I was going to say.
But I get it. I can jump in. It'll bail you out.
There you go.
Yeah. So, at the lives lost and bodies mangled, like what would we learn from this? You get that survivor's remorse. I wanted people to know about this story, so that's why I wrote the book. It faded away. It happened later on that day. The ground forces that entered Iraq, and there were casualties. The Jessica Lynn's convoy had been commandeered, so now we have prisoners of war. Very, very busy day. March 23rd, 2003 was.
Oh wow! I didn't realize all that happened.
Yeah. So this got buried. So if you didn't know that it happened, you didn't know to follow the internet blogs days later. So this got buried. I didn't want the world not to know about this story. So that was the reason for writing the book. You need to know what my soldiers went through. Number one, you need to know that this insider threat is closer than you think. That if it can happen there, it can happen anywhere. And to be blind to that, I think would just be, you just be blind. Like you just didn't have the information. So that was the reason for writing it. But at the same time, I didn't want schools, organizations, society to be blindsided like we were.
Mm-hmm.
So what can I do to help you to, be more aware and be situationally aware? I was never, and no one's ever going to fix what he had already planned years before he joined the military. So I feel we would do, but how can we fix this? How can we keep this from happening again?
Mm-hmm.
And so I put these strategies in the book. Proactive situational awareness strategies. So now I save lives by providing proactive situational awareness strategies to mitigate mass shooting and insider threat attacks in the workplace, academic institutions, and places of worship. I want people to understand that over 90% of these attacks are insider threat attacks. People aren't just walking down the street and saying, let me go shoot up your school. They're already on the inside. They're the student. Some cases, they're the professor. That happened UNLV. UNLV not too long ago.
Oh, really?
So they're on the inside already. I know people say mass shooter attack. The mass shooter part is the result of the attack.
Mm-hmm.
The attack itself is an insider threat.
Mm-hmm.
So when I can get people to understand that part first and begin to look on the inside first, or simultaneously as the outside, now we're getting somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where those strategies, that's where situational awareness security takes place. So the first one is trust no one. I did that. Person looked like me, wore the same uniform as I did. Hell, he even took an oath like I did. Doesn't get much deeper than that. You don't have to take an oath to go work for IBM. Mm-hmm. Nothing against IBM, but you have to take an oath. You get my point.
Yeah.
This is an oath. Like you're in it. And then killed 2, wounded 13 others. Mm-hmm. So trust out the window for Bart Womack. So when I'm speaking to the audiences, I tell them trust no one. And why do I do that? Because you got to trust somebody. Well, I'll let your mind decide who you're going to trust. More importantly, by telling you to trust no one, you're going to begin to think a little bit more about how you trust. That's mm-hmm. what I want you to think about. Because some people say, well, I'll trust them until they give me a reason not to. Boom. Okay.
Yeah, that's your reason.
There's one down, but there's far too many people just think that and that alone. Mm-hmm. I'll trust it to make a reason not to. And I'm not saying don't shape it to the point where, we don't get along with one another and all that type of stuff. I'm just saying think about how you trust. They owe you something before you just give them that, anoint them with this thing called trust. Mm-hmm. Next one is observe, listen, and report. So an example of that is I was a property building manager. I had to get that out. Property building manager of an apartment building, and I just taken over. And I come out this door, and the light didn't work. It's getting a little late, in the evening, where the light should have come on automatically, and it didn't come on. It wasn't working. So I went back in, got a pen and paper, came back out and said, look, let me write down all these deficiencies. So I'm standing out looking at the whole apartment building. I had just taken over, been there about 2 or 3 weeks, and I'm writing down the deficiencies I see in terms of lights, right? You go back in, come out another door, same thing. So second time I'm out, I say, if someone looking at me right now, they should think that this is suspicious behavior. This is before the book came out.
Yeah.
So this is suspicious behavior. It is. It's a form of casing. Mm-hmm. Is he casing the building? Because only the people who live in the building know I'm property building manager. Everyone else, they don't know. On the big sign said Bart's taking over now.
Yeah.
So they don't know this should look suspicious, right? Mm-hmm. So I go back in and I just start going on every floor, checking interior lights. So when I make my order, I can do one order. So I get up to the 5th floor and I hear freeze. Well, I've been around long enough to know that when someone says freeze, that means someone's pointing a weapon at your back, right? So I freeze. They say, put your hands up. I do. Drop us in your hands. Put your hand in your head. Get on your knees. They handcuff me. They say, well, you fit the description of someone that was called in of suspicious behavior. I said, no, I need the description. I'm a property building manager, and I was, writing down efficiencies or whatever and all that, right? You get my ID and everything. They see my military ID, and they start calling me Sergeant Major from that point on. I said, well, this is what I want you to do. Going forward, if I ever call you to come to this apartment building, you better come up with the same amount of force and it's facts.
Right.
5 police officers showing up with weapons drawn for a person who fit the description with a pen and a piece of paper.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't imagine what the dispatch told them where 5 of them had to come and draw weapons for someone who was the suspect has a pen and a paper. Let's send 5 police officers there with weapons drawn.
Yeah.
That's a good response. I digress. My point is, someone was observing and they reported.
Mm-hmm.
That's my point. So anybody can do this. Now, apartment building was here, frat house. So likely a frat person.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, but good on them. Good on them. I applaud that. I don't applaud 5 police officers showing up with weapons drawn for someone armed with a pen and paper, but I applaud the observer in the report. So
Yeah.
I went into my book when I started talking about those strategies. Another one is know your neighbor. So it's not just like know the person next door. That's cool too. But your coworker, how well do you know them? Your fellow student, all those things. How well can you know them? When you know them, they'll begin to tell you stuff. They'll bring stuff to work and they'll tell you, about what happened last night, what they plan to do, good, bad, right, or wrong. They'll tell you that someone cut them off on the road. I got the license plate when I get off of work. I'm going to track them down. My buddy he can track these things. I'm going to their house and I'm going to give them a piece of mind or whatever. They'll tell you everything if you befriend them enough. So you need to know them,
Mm-hmm.
right? Then you'll learn something about them. Listen, don't just hear. College classroom, there's 19-year-old sophomores. A person says, they start talking about guns. And the professor's in there, right? They're talking about guns, criminology class. The fifth student says, I have a gun, right? One says they have an AK-47 and it's in the trunk of my car. And they go on with the class ends. And but one 19-year-old in the classroom, he was listening to the point where he thought that sounded a matter of fact. Like, no joke, right now, this dude has an AK-47 in the trunk of his car.
Mm-hmm.
Fellow 19-year-old student on this college campus. So class is over. The guy who was doing the listening goes back to the dorm, tells the person there, who's me, and says, I don't know what you're going to do with this, but so-and-so said that he has an AK-47 in the trunk of his car. To me, it sounded a matter of fact. So now you got it. You can do whatever you want to. So student comes back, start walking him to his car, gets about 100 feet away. He says, I just want you to know before we get to my car that I have an AK-47 in the trunk of my car.
Oh, wow.
Now, no ill will was planned. He was supposed to link up with a fellow student, and the gun was supposed to be taken to that fellow student's dad's house who lived in a rural area, who was going to lock it up. They would come out there on the weekends and shoot it. Dad would lock it back up. They'd go back to campus. But they missed link up the day before. The mistake was the student running his mouth and saying, it's in the trunk of my car. That was the day when they were talking about guns and asked who had guns. He shouldn't even say a word.
Mm-hmm.
It was a violation to have a gun on campus. So he risked being kicked out of the school just to say, I have a gun. Oh, it's in the trunk of my car.
Mm-hmm.
Point is, one person out of everyone in that classroom, to include the adult, was listening to the point where it sounded a matter of fact.
Yeah.
Everyone else just heard.
Mm-hmm.
Next is gut check. Yeah, that's our strongest sense. It's going to tell us everything, but our job is to listen to it. Now, you hear these things happen. You hear someone interviewed saying, well, I always thought he did, or I always thought this, or I always thought something. But what'd you do with that thought? You just thought and let it go.
Yeah.
Maybe told them inside your house, but was the thought strong enough of what you seen, what you heard, what you witnessed, or whatever, strong enough to report something?
Mm-hmm.
The gut is telling you something.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we got to do something about it. I was took an Uber to the airport one time and had a golf bag, and it's like I forget the material of the carrier, No, like a graphite type
Okay.
carrier, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
And it's a pretty big round cylinder for the golf bag to fit inside the carrier, right?
Yeah.
But the Uber driver says, "What do you have in there? Guns?" And I'm thinking, well, that's kind of an odd carrying case for guns, but it's plausible. It could be. I happen to have golf clubs in the golf carrier container, but you could put rifles in there. I said, no, it's a golf club bag. Oh, I never seen one like that. Okay. But my point is that his gut saw something and he asked a question. Remember, I said some things beg a question?
Yeah.
It's his car. If nothing else, I know that I'm transporting guns.
Mm-hmm.
He asked a question. You're going to get an answer if you ask a question. Some things just beg a question. But his gut said to ask.
Mm-hmm. I didn't realize how non-observant I am until I go out with my husband and something will happen and like a full-on scenario will happen and I have no idea it's even going on in front of me, whether it's a drug deal or a kidnapping or something like that. I mean, my husband like picks it out. We were driving to church one day, just driving down the road. Some guy was carrying a baby and he was walking down the center of the road in the median. And for most people, that wouldn't have triggered anything. But to him, he's like, something's wrong. And so he just kept circling back. He would go a little further and then circle back. And he kept watching this guy until the guy noticed that my husband was watching him. And so he started getting all, paranoid, looking over his shoulder and, weaving in and out of like the trees and stuff. He went from the median to the side of the road and stuff. He was doing all kinds of weird stuff. And so my husband finally, he just called the police and he's like, look, I don't know what's going on. My gut just tells me something's wrong. Come to find out, this guy had kidnapped this baby from a house that I guess the mom was partying at or something. I don't know. And he had Molly or MDMA on him. And he had put it, I can't remember if he had put it in the formula or what, to hide it. Yeah. And my husband something was off. And yeah, he saved that baby.
Yeah, I would say adult with a child on the medium is police immediately because just for protection of the child.
Yeah.
Like I'm calling immediately.
Mm-hmm.
Now he took it a step further and followed and all that type of stuff and called, but just that's wrong. A driver not paying attention. A driver could be, he picked up the cell phone, something came in, and and then now that baby's they're gone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's called immediately.
Yeah, and he's done that several times,
Yeah.
several times actually. He's the guy that you don't want to do anything around because he will know exactly what you're doing.
Yeah. And I talk about those 19-year-olds because people would think, well, Bart, you've been, you had this background and blah, 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 and whatever whatever your husband does or whatever. But you don't have to be that. That's why a teenager, bought this thing up where the adult was in the room who didn't. That's why I talk about that one. So anybody can do this. So you're not on guard police officer for your life just by employing situational awareness security, and more importantly, employing these strategies. Like I started with, is trust no one, observe, listen, report, know your neighbors, know the people around you and that you frequent, listen, don't just hear, and that gut check and all those things. In the end, you're going to end up that kind of brings out the signs.
Mm-hmm.
It's really all signs in the end, but I kind of break it down specifically for you.
Okay. So this book you're trying to turn it into a movie?
I am. It's to further illustrate the story, and then who the perp was, and how these things are again closer than you think, and that's the biggest platform. Some people read, some not going to read. A lot more will sit down and watch it and to know that, and it's nothing against the military, because again, all they can do is recruit society.
Yeah.
But like I said, what we don't know, and they don't know, is that we don't go home with them at night. So you don't know what the hell they're planning. And there's this thing called, I'm gonna mess it up, proximity illusion.
Okay.
The closer you are to it, the worse your eyes are in seeing it.
Oh yeah, that's so
And
true.
even in these attacks where it's the parents and their child, well, we can't fathom our child's going to do this. I don't care what state they're in. I don't care what their mental health is. We do not believe that our child is capable of these things even after it's happened,
Yeah.
let alone when it's in the process.
Mm-hmm.
Even though things may come out of their mouth while they're in our house that could allude to something that is a sign of these things that I've talked about, but we are such in disbelief. It's that the closer you are to it, you have this illusion that it can't be.
Mm-hmm.
Administrators at schools, people in charge of workplaces still have the same illusion that it's not going to happen there.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't prepare for it.
Yeah, I've gone to several churches where they realized the significance of taking matters into their own hands and created a security team with people that would patrol the entire church grounds during and after service, before, during, and after service, just picking up on weird things or whatever. And there were a couple of times that they noticed some things and I think prevented some things from happening. I'm not sure exactly what, but
Yeah.
strange things.
Yeah, I mean, it's a proactive approach.
Hmm.
Now you can wait till people are killed at church, then put them in. We ain't gonna bring those people back.
No.
And then guess what? Now no one's coming back there because they know you're prepared.
Hmm.
So I mean, my commander used to say, if it looks like a duck, it is a duck. They're gonna attack the duck. But if you look like you're gonna put up some resistance, they're not going there. They're going someplace else. That's just how it works. The attacker doesn't want to get into a skirmish with you. They want to win.
Yeah.
They don't want to be, can it be 50-50? They don't want that.
Yeah.
They're going for the win. They're going for the duck.
Yep.
So I'm glad you brought up the churches. I had this in my mind, and I would have said it, but I'm glad you brought it up. And I know that places of worship kind of look at this, not, I can't have weapons in God's house and all that.
I've actually been in a church shooting.
Oh wow.
But it was an accidental shooting. It fell out of somebody's pocket and somebody was shot. So
oh my gosh.
that was very interesting.
But some of these mega churches. So Joel Osteen's church, they had someone came in there to, cause an incident and had to shoot her as a female.
Yeah.
Now we don't have females doing these things often, but she chose the church.
I don't know. I've seen some pretty crazy females.
Yeah. Well, for your audience who doesn't travel in your circles, they might not be. They might not be aware of that. My point is that, I mean, churches don't get bigger than his, but he's seen that, hey, I have to protect my parishioners, and that would be my message to places of worship. That same thing. These are very, very unquestionable times, and people have different motivations for whatever reason they want to do it. We can't get into the reasoning, but our job is to be proactive in our approach to mitigate it.
Yeah.
Not after it happens. It's not going to happen in my church.
Yeah. It'll happen just when you're least expecting it. I mean, that's how stuff like that happens. So, Bart, can you actually, I wanted to ask you, since I ask all of my other guests before we wrap this up, because we're coming at an hour and 49 minutes. So, I try to ask everybody if they've had any paranormal, UFO or cryptid experiences in their life. And I ask that just because I'm a weirdo and I've had weird things happen. And so I'm just trying to figure it out. And I think the best way to do it is quit making the subjects taboo and just talk about it. So, have you had any of those experiences?
I haven't.
Okay.
I haven't. I think in my mind, is that a UFO? Is that something? Did I see something? I don't know if I saw something or not, but I think I'll say we. Maybe some people want to be witness to some things. I actually saw something that does exist.
Uh-huh.
Now, I don't think I'm of the disbelief that it doesn't exist. I wouldn't say that.
Hmm.
I just haven't. I just haven't witnessed it.
Hmm. Well, unfortunately, I have.
Mhm.
And so that's why I ask people because, uh, I, I feel like a weirdo and I'm sure that I come across as that sometimes. But, when it happens to you and no one wants to talk about it and you can't really get any kind of like read on what the heck really happened, you just want to talk about it and just be like, okay, let's figure this out together. So that's what I'm in the pursuit of doing is just trying to figure it out, and I'm not sure what I believe. Well, I mean, I obviously believe that there is a God and that there's a devil, and so the Bible talks a lot about paranormal things and supernatural things and spiritual things, and I think they all just kind of I think they're all kind of in the same realm.
Mhm. All right.
So I'm trying to figure it out. So, Bart, what do you have coming up, and where can people find you and buy your book?
Yes, well, we'll start with the book part. You can get that on Amazon. As I mentioned, I feel you get a twofer. You're going to get this story in detail, blow by blow, second by second. And as well, you're going to get these strategies that I mentioned as well. And there's a few stories that are associated with that. That was part of the work of putting it together. As I was writing the book, I began to follow these different attacks, some of the motivations, and how they align to our insider threat,
Hmm.
and just to come up with the fact that there's just one. It's just the insider threat. It's not all these other different things. These people are on the inside.
Yeah.
So every attack that aligns with these strategies, I'm subject to talk about them when I'm speaking and to audience at various places. So you can follow me on LinkedIn. That's where I post most of my stuff. Website as well, but mostly LinkedIn.
Okay. Okay. And with the movie, what are you expecting? Have you already gotten a script written, or are you shopping it around? What's going on?
Yeah, so all those I've written a script. So I've written that a few years ago. Have some updates to make now that I want to put in there. But if someone's ready, that's ready to go. Um, and I'm shopping it around. It's a little slow, but I'm shopping it around.
Mhm.
Some they have to be prepared to tell the REAL story, not only the REEL story. And there's a difference. They sound the
Yeah.
same. Yeah, so you have to be careful with this, and not to give it to someone, because an alien, well, not to be confused with what you're talking about earlier, but they can make it where a Martian was the attacker.
Yeah.
So I can't allow that. So that would degrade the lives that were lost and the bodies that were mangled. So it's a little more strategic than you think with a true story of this magnitude.
Yeah.
And it is a business, so you have to be careful with that as well. It's hard to get someone to come in and be both,
Hmm.
enthralled in the story and obviously know about the business part of it. Uh, they're kind of business first, story created a business, not I love this, I understand what it can do, I understand the impact, I understand the lives you can save, et cetera, et cetera. That's not how they jump in.
Yeah. What
to
makes
jump
more
in
money?
business first. Yeah, it's business first. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
so it takes a minute, and to find the right connection.
Okay. Okay. Well, I thank you very much, Bart, for your service and for writing this story to let people know about what happened to you and to your fellow soldiers who really haven't gotten their story told as of yet until you did it. So I thank you for being that person to do that, because everybody has a story, and this story is important to let everybody be aware of, because, like you said, we don't know where the enemy really is. They're hiding at all times, and we've got to be very careful as to who we choose to trust, and who we put in leadership. And so I thank you very much for all that you've done and that you continue to do.
Well, I appreciate you having me. I would close by saying that we, your listeners, we all are the first line of defense.
Yes.
Law enforcement is not going to be there when we need them. They're a call away, but how long is that? We don't know. So until they get there, we are the first line of defense.
I totally agree. I totally agree. So thank you, Bart, very much. And I hope that everything goes really well for you, and that you're able to teach as many people as possible how to mitigate all of these dangers, and learn how to spot things that are not right.
Well, thank you, Amber. I appreciate that.
Okay. Thank you. And I hope you have a blessed day, Bart.
All right. Thank you too.
Yeah. And I thank everybody being here. Bubbles and Matt and Charles. Cherokee Girl was here earlier. Let's see who else. We got Joel and Maverick, Forest Friend. Let's see. Am I missing anybody else? Tracer, Risa. Thank you, everybody, for being here. And I hope that everybody has a very good week, and that you do something great to go out there and change the world for the best, and do the very best to make somebody's day brighter. So have a blessed day, everybody. Bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to Military Broadcast Radio. As we wrap up today's show, we want to remind you that the podcast of today's episode will be available right after we go off the air. So if you missed any part of the show or want to listen again, be sure to check it out. And remember, we're here to support and honor our veterans. Your stories and experiences matter, and we are committed to giving you a platform to share them. That's right. We're here to give our veterans a voice. So don't forget to catch the podcast and stay connected with us. Giving our veterans a voice.